A Roman master once twisted his slave's leg until it snapped. The slave didn't scream. He didn't beg. He didn't curse his tormentor. He simply looked up at his owner and said 5 words that would echo through 2,000 years of history. "I told you it would break." That slave would go on to become the most sought-after philosopher in the Roman Empire. Senators begged for his counsel. Future emperors studied his words. And the man who once owned nothing, not even his own body, would teach the world what it truly means to be free. His name was Epictetus, and his story will change how you see everything. In the year 50 CE, in the Greek city of Hierapolis, what is now Pamukkale, Turkey, a boy was born into slavery. We don't know his birth name. We don't know his parents. We don't know what dreams he might have had before the world taught him that slaves don't get to dream. History only remembers him by the name his masters gave him, Epictetus. In Greek it means acquired one, property, a thing to be bought and sold, a human being reduced to a transaction. He was brought to Rome as a child, sold to a man named Epictetus, a wealthy freedman who had himself once been a slave. The irony was not lost on anyone. Epictetus had risen from bondage to become secretary to the Emperor Nero himself, one of the most brutal and unstable rulers Rome had ever known. In Nero's Rome, life was cheap. Slaves were beaten for minor offenses. They were killed on whims. They existed at the pleasure of their masters, with no rights, no protections, no hope of justice. This was the world young Epictetus entered, a world where his body belonged to another man, a world where his future was not his own. But something was about to change. Epictetus noticed something unusual in this young slave, a hunger for knowledge, a sharpness of mind that couldn't be contained by menial tasks. When other slaves sought rest, Epictetus sought books. When others gossiped, he listened to the conversations of educated men. In an act of unexpected generosity, or perhaps shrewd investment, Epictetus allowed Epictetus to attend lectures. Not just any lectures, the teachings of Musonius Rufus, the greatest Stoic philosopher of the age. Imagine the scene: Rome's elite, draped in fine togas, discussing the nature of virtue and the meaning of the good life. Wealthy young men for whom philosophy was an intellectual hobby, a mark of sophistication, and among them a slave boy in rough cloth, absorbing every word as if his life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. While others debated philosophy as entertainment, Epictetus understood it as survival. For a man who controlled nothing in the external world, not his time, not his labor, not even his own body, the Stoic teaching hit like lightning. Some things are within our power, and some things are not. In that moment, something shifted. The slave boy realized that while his master owned his body, no one could own his mind. No one could control his judgments, his values, his inner response to the world. He had found the key to a prison he didn't even know he was in. The story of Epictetus's leg has been told for 2,000 years. It has become legend. The moment when philosophy stopped being theory and became flesh. The details vary depending on who tells it. Some say his master broke it in a fit of rage, angry at some perceived slight. Others say it was twisted slowly, deliberately, a sadistic test of the slave's newfound philosophical calm. Some historians doubt it happened at all. What we know for certain is this: Epictetus walked with a limp for the rest of his life. His leg was damaged, possibly broken, possibly from birth, possibly from violence, and his response to that disability became the foundation of everything he would teach. The most famous version of the story goes like this. As his leg was being twisted, Epictetus said calmly, "If you keep twisting, it will break." His master continued. When the bone snapped, Epictetus added, without raising his voice, "There, I told you it would break." No anger, no hatred, no begging for mercy, no promises of revenge, just a simple statement of fact, delivered with the same tone one might use to observe that it was raining. This was not numbness. This was not denial. This was the Stoic discipline in its purest form, the complete separation of external events from internal response. Years later, teaching his own students, Epictetus would return to this moment again and again. Lameness is an impediment to the leg, but not to the will. Say this to yourself with regard to everything that happens. You will find it an impediment to something else, but not to yourself. His body could be broken, his spirit could not. Here is the paradox that Epictetus embodied, a paradox that still challenges us today. The slave was free. The emperor was not. Consider Nero, who ruled the known world. He commanded legions. He controlled the treasury of an empire. He could have anyone killed with a word, and yet Nero lived in constant terror. He murdered his own mother because he feared her influence. He executed friends and advisors at the slightest suspicion of disloyalty. He saw conspiracies everywhere. He trusted no one. He was a prisoner of his own fears, desires, and paranoia, trapped in a golden cage of his own making. Epictetus, who owned nothing, feared nothing. He had discovered what the Stoics called the only true freedom, mastery over one's own mind, complete sovereignty over the one territory that can never be invaded, the inner citadel of the self. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, he taught, but by eliminating it. The emperor who had everything was enslaved by his wants. The slave who had nothing was liberated by his acceptance. In 68 CE, Nero fell. The tyrant who had terrorized Rome for 14 years died by his own hand, reportedly crying, "What an artist dies in me," as he plunged a dagger into his throat. In the chaos that followed, the year of 4 emperors, when Rome tore itself apart, Epictetus gained his freedom. The details are lost to history. Perhaps Epaphroditus freed him. Perhaps freedom came through some legal technicality in the upheaval. What matters is what Epictetus did with his freedom. Unlike most freedmen who sought wealth, status, or revenge against those who had wronged them, Epictetus sought only one thing: to teach. For nearly 25 years, he taught philosophy in Rome. His school grew. His reputation spread. Senators, generals, and scholars came to learn from the former slave with the broken leg and the unbreakable mind. He taught in the streets, in borrowed rooms, wherever people would listen. He owned almost nothing: a simple mat to sleep on, an earthenware lamp, a few books. When visitors expressed surprise at his poverty, he would smile. "I keep an iron lamp by my household gods," he once explained. "One night, I heard a noise and found it had been stolen. I thought, the thief was moved by no unreasonable motive. He needed a lamp more than I did. Tomorrow, I will buy one of earthenware. A man loses only what he already has." If you're finding wisdom in these ancient teachings, consider subscribing. We explore the philosophy that built empires and can transform your life, one video at a time. But Rome was not done testing Epictetus. In 89 CE, a new tyrant sat on the throne. Emperor Domitian, a ruler even more paranoid than Nero, looked at the philosophers of Rome and saw a threat. Philosophy bred independent thinking. Independent thinking bred questions. Questions bred dissent. Dissent bred revolution. Domitian issued a decree. All philosophers were to be banished from Rome and Italy. Immediately, at nearly 40 years old, Epictetus was forced to leave everything he had built: his school, his students, his reputation, the city he had known for decades. A lesser man might have been broken by this second exile, first from freedom, now from home. A lesser man might have raged against the injustice, might have despaired at starting over. Epictetus saw it as an opportunity. "It is difficulties that show what men are," he taught. "When a difficulty befalls you, remember that God, like a trainer, has matched you with a rough young opponent. For what purpose? That you may become an Olympic victor. But this cannot be done without sweat." Epictetus settled in Nicopolis, a Greek city on the western coast, founded by Augustus Caesar to commemorate his victory at Actium. It was far from Rome, far from power, far from everything he had known. It was perfect. Word spread quickly. The philosopher who had been banished from Rome was teaching again. Students came from across the Roman Empire, from Syria, from Egypt, from Gaul, from Britain. They left behind wealth, comfort, and status to sit at the feet of a former slave with a broken leg. His teaching style was unlike anything Rome had known. He didn't lecture from prepared texts like an academic. He didn't offer comfortable platitudes. He challenged. He provoked. He demanded that his students examine every assumption, question every belief, test every principle against the reality of their lives. If you want to improve, he told them bluntly, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. One student complained that philosophy was too hard, that progress was too slow. Epictetus replied with a metaphor that has echoed through centuries. No thing great is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Would you have the fruit of a fig tree ripen in 1 hour? Do not expect it. At the heart of everything Epictetus taught was one idea, perhaps the most powerful idea in all of philosophy. An idea so simple that a child can understand it, yet so profound that adults spend lifetimes trying to master it. The dichotomy of control. Some things are within our power, and some things are not. Within our power are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own actions. Not within our power are body, property, reputation, command, and, in a word, whatever are not our own actions. Think about what this means for your life right now. Your body can be broken, as Epictetus knew firsthand. Your property can be stolen or destroyed. Your reputation can be ruined by lies and rumors. Other people will do what other people do, regardless of your wishes. None of this is within your control. None of it, no matter how much you worry, plan, or struggle. But your judgments about these events, your responses to them, your choices about who you will be in the face of them, these are yours, always, completely. No emperor, no master, no circumstance, no twist of fate can take them from you. It is not things that disturb us, Epictetus taught, but our judgments about things. The traffic jam doesn't make you angry. Your judgment that you shouldn't be stuck in traffic makes you angry. The criticism doesn't hurt you. Your judgment that others should approve of you creates the pain. Change the judgment, and you change everything. Here is one of history's great ironies. Epictetus never wrote a single word. The man whose teachings would influence emperors, generals, and millions of ordinary people across 2,000 years. He never picked up a pen to record his own thoughts. Everything we know of his philosophy comes from one devoted student, Arrian of Nicomedia. Arrian was a young Roman aristocrat who would later become a consul and a historian. But in his youth, he sat in Epictetus's school and wrote down everything he heard. 8 books of discourses, the actual lectures, preserved in Epictetus's own voice. 4 survive today. He also compiled the Enchiridion, the handbook, a pocket guide to Stoic living that could be carried and consulted daily. These notes would travel through time. They would be copied by monks in medieval monasteries. They would be studied by Renaissance scholars. They would be carried into battle by soldiers and into prison cells by dissidents. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor we explored in our last video, credits his teacher Junius Rusticus for introducing him to Epictetus. In his private journal, the Meditations, Marcus returns to Epictetus's teachings again and again, wrestling with them, applying them, finding strength in them. The slave had become the teacher of emperors. Epictetus taught in Nicopolis until his death around 135 CE. He was approximately 85 years old, an extraordinary lifespan for the ancient world. He never married until late in life, but in his final years, he did something that revealed the depth of his humanity beneath the philosophical rigor. He adopted an orphaned child who would otherwise have died. A baby abandoned, as many were in the ancient world, left to perish from exposure. Epictetus took this child in. He raised it with the help of a woman who may have been his wife or companion. The philosopher who taught detachment from external things could not detach from a child in need. This was not a contradiction. This was Stoicism, properly understood. He saw suffering he could address. He had the power to act, so he acted. After his death, his earthenware lamp, the simple one he had bought to replace the stolen iron one, was sold for 3,000 drachmas, a fortune for a piece of clay. People wanted to own something, anything, that had belonged to the slave who taught the world about freedom. 2,000 years later, Epictetus's words still set people free. Admiral James Stockdale was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for over 7 years. He was tortured repeatedly. He was confined in leg irons for months at a time, and in those darkest moments he thought of Epictetus, the slave with the broken leg who taught that freedom is an inside job. Epictetus was telling his students that there can be no such thing as being the victim of another, Stockdale wrote. You can only be a victim of yourself. It's all in how you discipline your mind. Today, Epictetus's Dichotomy of Control forms the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy, the most effective treatment for anxiety and depression. His teachings influence everyone from Navy SEALs to Silicon Valley executives to ordinary people trying to navigate an uncertain world. A slave who owned nothing taught us that the only true possession is our own mind. A man whose body was broken taught us that freedom has nothing to do with external circumstances. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Epictetus asked his students a question that still echoes today. How long will you wait before you demand the best of yourself? If you're ready to explore more ancient wisdom, subscribe to Eudaimonia. Next, we'll tell the story of Seneca, the richest man in Rome who chose death over compromise. The path to Eudaimonia, to human flourishing, is open to everyone, slave or emperor, rich or poor, broken or whole. The choice is yours. This is the way. 1. Shock, Section 1. Broken leg scene. He didn't scream. Most visually striking. 2. Tension, Section 2. Slave boy in chains. Hierapolis, 50 CE. Builds unease. 3. Curiosity, Section 3. Greek text. Philosophy school. The forbidden knowledge. Mystery. 4. Revelation, Section 4. The breaking scene. The test. Promise of insight. 5. Lock-in, Section 5. Split-screen slave versus emperor. Who is truly free? Viewer committed, Section 4. The broken leg story payoff. Section 6. The lamp story. Section 7. Exile twist. Section 10. Connection to Marcus Aurelius. Section 11. Adopted child story. Mid-video. 10-0. Subscribe prompt. End 20-0. Subscribe plus. Next.